Greetings and welcome to another Max Chroma video. In this video, I will be going over another one of my digital products that I have available on my payhip.com/maxchroma website. This is going to be the Max Chroma HCWB Adjustment and Colorizer layers. Now, this is another action for Adobe Photoshop, and I'm going to make this video as short as I can to just go over the functions of this HCWB action. I'll read this for you and you may understand a little bit of an overview of this action. The Max Chroma HCWB Adjustment and Colorizer Layers action for Adobe Photoshop is the next level in color mode control and mask generation for gaining mastery over the colors and tones of your images or graphics. This set of actions will generate fully extracted hue layers like HSB, but then provide chroma, white, and black layers as well, following the HWB color model of Alvy Smith, creator of modern RGBA graphics and the HSB HSL color models as well. With harnessing the power of HWB and expanding into more mask generation techniques, we can now truly capture the colors of an image into controls or masks or colorization layers like never before. There are provided some automated actions which bring the original RGB document into a merged split of the HCWB layers and applying various methods as mentioned above, as well as step-by-step instructional actions showing how to easily generate the HCWB layer splits. Okay, let's just jump right into it in Photoshop. And in the previous video for the HSB color layers action, I was using a color test file to start with, and I've made some updates to that file. In the first video, there were some things that showed some banding or some noise in some of the colors when they're extracted, and that was because I had created the file a certain way. I will go over this in other videos. It's about 8-bit versus 16-bit and the way you would generate certain color blends or pixels in the graphics. There's an updated test file which I will use to update that graphic on my Creative Cloud. But we're going to go ahead and start with this. I'm going to open up Photoshop CC. This is the 2019 version. And these actions should work going back to the first Creative Cloud versions. They may even work in CS6. I will have to do a little bit of testing just to be sure of that. Okay, I'm going to drag this color test file into here. And I'm going to show you guys also how to install the action when you download it. So I have an actions panel, but I'm just going to delete that. So if I have no actions in my panel, which you'd get to by going to Window, Actions, what I'm going to do when I download this Max Chromograph HCWB is I'm going to double click and it'll install into my actions panel. Now you can view the actions this way, you can play the actions this way, or you can also go into button mode by clicking this tab up here. And again, this is in the actions panel. I'll click this tab and select button mode. Okay, and again, you see that these are squares of color, different hues, with white and black in them. And you'll notice this color picker down here is a triangle. This color picker actually follows the HWB color model of a hue mixing with white and black, whereas these squares and the color picker within Photoshop follow the HSB color model, hue, saturation, brightness. Again, we're going to leave all that stuff for future videos that just go into these color models. But using this graphic, I'm going to start off showing what the action does. And the very first button is called the Max Chromograph HCWB. This is going to work similar to the HSB color layers, but it's going to do things like wherever there was black in the image, it'll remain 100% black. Anything that was completely neutral grayscale will become white. Let's go ahead and click the button. It'll duplicate to a new document, and it'll give us a whole bunch of layers, but it's only going to have the what I call the Max Chromograph full hue revealed layer. And I'll zoom in and show you again what this does. So here's the original layer on top. It's red hue, but it has all this mixture of tinting, shading, and toning of white and black over it. However, underneath all that is the hue going down all the way to this point here. So again, whatever was 100% black will remain that way, and anything that was neutral grayscale will just be forced to white. The next layer here is going to be the chromograph in color fading out to white. Now the chroma, or what I call the chromograph, is all of the hues blending to black and blending to white, and it's not the same as the saturations. Okay, this is all of the color, and it's been faded out wherever the other colors like black and white overlap at. Now here's another one where this just fades out to black instead of to white. Here's another layer where everything has been converted to grayscale, like a layer mask. So all of the hues are now forced to the same color. Now here's the whiteness of that original graphic, and here's the blackness of that graphic. Okay, and you have your original layer on top. Now let's just show how that works, particularly with a different image like a photograph. So I'll go ahead and open up this particular photo as a test. Okay, I have a sunset with an ocean, and I'll just click the Max Chromograph HCWB. Okay, and we'll notice anything that was pure white or neutral will be made white, and anything that fell into total shadow or shade will become black, but I don't really see much of that here. And so this particular graphic really doesn't, even though this looks black, it's really not solid black. Okay, so there's a hue underneath just about all of these pixels. So you can see in the original, you can kind of see the hue blending from yellow to orange, and you see that when you look at the chromograph, the max full hue revealed. You'll also see some noise, and that we'll go over in other videos about JPEG files versus RAW files. I do have a file here, like a raw graphic file here. I'll open that up in Photoshop. Just going to use the Camera Raw Defaults preset. Make sure that I open this in 16-bit. We're going to do Open Image. Now if I run the Max Chromograph on something like this, you should see that we end up with much less noise in different areas that would have had noise as a JPEG file. There will still be noise because of the way that hue and RGB work when translated with each other. But you can see that even though there looked like there was a lot of black and a lot of white in this image, underneath all that is color. And then you can see the chromograph in color. So the colors are not very saturated in this image. There's the chromograph going to black. There's the chromograph in grayscale. Here's the whiteness of the image, shown where white is white. Here's the blackness of the image, shown where the black colors are black. Okay, we're going to close that file, and we're going to look at this one again as well and show you, here's the chromograph with the colors fading to white. You can see that there is a lot of saturated color here. There's the chromograph fading to black. And again, with the way these actions work, and the reason I'm releasing this particular action, it's only $5 on my PayHip site. And I really wanted to give people the introduction to getting some of these hue, chroma, whiteness, and blackness layers. And I've set it up in a way that there's some artistic use here. You know, I think this looks pretty cool just as is. So you can utilize these actions just for effects purposes. Now here's the chromograph in grayscale. So that's all those colors. The blackest parts of this would be where it was most saturated. Here's the whiteness and the blackness. So I'm going to close that, close this, and we'll go ahead and work with this image again to show some of the automated HCWB modes. Now this particular button doesn't do anything, that's just a placeholder for this group. Down below that we have manual HCWB layers. This is where I'll teach instructionally, and in future videos I'll show how each of these actions actually create this. So, you know, part of my philosophy here is not to just try and sell you something, but to also show you how to create it, how to do these actions, how to do the functions that are in the actions, how to create these separations or masks. Starting off with the automated modes, the HCWB Colorizer I find to be one of the simplest ways to go in and start making adjustments using those split layers, combining them in certain ways. So here is the HCWB Colorizer, and one of the things I like to do to make this very simple is I'm just going to go to the layer filter and go to mode and screen mode. This will show just the colorizer layers I've created. So with that simple action, setting this to mode and screen mode, now I can just simply double click the Whiteness colorizer and I can colorize everything in the image that was white. It's almost like levels, okay, leveling down through gray to black, but it's a little bit better than that, in my opinion, at converting the whites in the image to any color I want. So I can make this a tone of yellow, green, cyan, blue, magenta. I could go through all the hues, make this to any color I want. Now let's look at that in another test image first. Well, let's just look at the Blackness colorizer as well, and then we'll look at a photograph. So this will do the same thing. I can move the blackness up gray towards white, almost like levels, or I can add color to it. Okay. So let's close that. And I'm going to go ahead and grab this other image. We'll open it again from Camera Raw. We'll run the HCWB Colorizer. Okay, and I'll go to Layer Filter, Kind, change this to Mode, change this to Screen. So I can double click the whiteness, and I can easily just start changing this to any color I want. Okay. The blackness, I can start changing this, lightening it up, change it to any color I want. So you can really create some photographic filters, do some very powerful adjustments with this. It's not quite getting into all of the colors of the image, but that's for future videos and future actions that I have already created, and I'll be releasing on the PayHip site and showing videos of those as well. Okay, but I could simply go to this whiteness, maybe add some warmth to that. And it doesn't have to be extreme. It could just be very, very subtle. Okay, go to this. Maybe go to a bit of a navy color. See, very subtle. Do very subtle adjustments or extreme adjustments. Really set this and control the black and white of the image into any tones you want. Okay. And we'll look at this with another image. Here's one that has a lot of color all throughout it. And now we're going to look at some of the other layers. Well, again, this is, we'll go to the colorizer, and you'll see that there is some white, there is some black in here. A lot of this is in the colors. So when I go to this mode screen, I'm seeing the white and black colorizer layers. Okay. But what about the hues underneath that? Let's turn off that filter and look what we have in here. We have three groups: a chroma group, a whiteness group, and a blackness group. So I'm going to turn off the blackness group visibility, the whiteness group visibility, And you can see there's built in an adjustment layer for the hues. So under that white and black, I can actually use the Photoshop HSL adjustment and move hues around, change particular hues only. Okay, the lightness of the reds, the saturation. So that way you have control over the whites in the image, the black colors in the image, and the hues using the HSL adjustment. Okay. Now using this test pattern again, I'm going to show what the HCWB split to layers does. This is similar to the Max Chromograph button, in which it simply gives you the layers split. Okay, and this is what an automated HCWB mode would do. The chroma, the blackness, the whiteness. Now there's an HCWB adjuster. I'm going to click on this, and this is going to create a little more complex of layer splits, controls, and groups. So again, to filter this out, we're going to go to the layer filter, kind, but I'm just going to click right here on adjustment layers, and you'll see that we have various adjustment layers here. Now you can change the panel options to be a little smaller if we want to look at them all. And we'll just pay attention to the blackness curve controller. So now I can make curve adjustments to just the black in the image, levels adjustments, there's a hue amount or the chroma controller. Okay, less chroma, more chroma, like saturating this image in. Levels for that. Okay. And then within the chroma, there's actually a separate blackness and whiteness controller for how it mixes with the chroma. So I can mix less black with the chroma, more. Levels again. So this is where the color is mixing with the black. And the whiteness curve controller, where the colors are mixing with white. Okay, and levels here as well. And again, underneath everything is a hue controller to adjust all the hues. I can change, let's say, just the red hues, and this is a Photoshop function, the HSB, the HSL adjuster. But that's being placed, if I turn off this filter, over the entire hue underneath the white and black. Okay, so let's close that. And let's go to HCWB Control Masks. So this is another way of adjusting things with the image using these hue, chroma, white, and black layers or masks. So in this case, I'm going to look inside here, and I'm going to see that I already have 3 groups. Okay, there's the original image. And this time, the group that has the adjustment layer controls group masked to chroma, it's not going to do anything because all of these are adjustment layers. Levels controller, curves controller, brightness, exposure, vibrance, hue, saturation. You can do many others that you want. I just loaded this up with the basic ones. And a colorizer layer. This colorizer layer is masked to the chroma. So I can change all of the colors with this colorizer layer to 1, but you'll notice that there's still some mixture of colors. That's because this is just masked. It's not doing it to the entire hue underneath it. But this works really good as just using that mask to make basic controls. So with the chroma, I can enhance that, okay, decrease it with levels, can go to curves for the chroma, brightness, exposure, etc. We can use the whiteness mask. Do a colorizer mask to the whiteness, similar to the other one, but it doesn't quite go over all of the image. We can do levels control adjustments. Okay, what it's basically doing is just creating one of these adjustment layers over the original, but masking the adjustment layer here based on that whiteness extraction. And again, in future videos, I'll show how to do these things, how to extract the whiteness using not just an action, but how you actually run it using Photoshop, and then how you would use that as a mask of a controller. Okay, curves, etc. Let's look at the Blackness controllers. Again, Blackness Colorizer, and levels and curves control for the blacks in the image masked by the blackness. So it operates just a little bit differently than the other ones. Okay, let's go ahead and close that. And now I'm going to show you the manual HCWB layers. It's basically what this is doing to create the layer splits. And the different actions are split up. In another video, I will show what's in these actions, how to run them, or how to create the action, basically. The first step is duplicates the document. The next step is make sure it's in RGB, image mode, RGB. The following step is convert to 16-bit or 8-bit, depending on whether your original is already in 16-bit. Sometimes converting from 8-bit up to 16-bit is very helpful to eliminate banding or noise or other artifacts that can happen from creating some of these layer splits. So it's already in 16-bit, I'll keep it there. Now this fourth step is going to give you a warning because I don't want you to run this on your original graphic at all. This is going to be after you run these various steps. Clicking on this will show warning. This action will merge all the layers of the current document. This is for instructional purposes only. Please be sure you either saved your work or duplicated the document in the first manual step action above. This action normally runs after the document has been duplicated, merging everything down in order to start the various color processes for extracting the information into new layers. If you run this action on your layered work document, it will be like flattening. If you don't have enough history states, you cannot undo this action. Okay, so this warning, you can hit continue, and it'll progress through extracting the transparency. I'll go over that in another video with an image that has transparency in it. But essentially, removes the transparency, merges everything together, and keeps the transparency mask on a separate layer. Step 5, we're going to rename this to the original art layer. Now, skipping this step to reselect the original art layer, which will go back to this step, has an exclamation point. We're going to go to step 6, extract the hue. Okay, just goes through a few steps. Again, when you're not in button mode, you can see the steps it goes through, and I'll show this in future video how to just extract the hue from a layer. Okay, back to button mode. Now we're going to reselect the original layer before going to step 7. Then we're going to extract the chroma. Reselect the original layer, extract the chroma in grayscale. Reselect the original layer, extract the whiteness. Reselect the original layer and extract the blackness. Okay, so I set it up so there's some automated HCWB modes, and there's a manual mode that has this broken into steps. And I'm releasing this action. Again, it's only $5, and I will show in another video how to even create all of these separate pieces of the action, how to create all these various layers. And this is still basically an introduction to the power of working with all this stuff. With these various layers, you can also get down into more than just the black, the white, the chroma. You can get into all the tints, tones, and shades of an image and use this to do colorizing or color correction work. Really, the possibilities are limitless with how you can use this within digital graphics and color control. I'm going to conclude the video with that, and hopefully you'll join me for future videos going more in depth into how to create all these things manually, some fun methods and examples. And then on my Max Chroma page, okay, there are other things I've put out already. The Max Chroma HCWB Custom Color Range tool, which is an action that gives you the ability to eyedrop any color in your artwork and then get a mask extracted from that, which works a lot differently than the way the color range tool works in Photoshop. And there's another free file I have called the HWB color wheel to work with, and that's just free to download. Okay, so thank you for joining me in this video, and I look forward to sharing more with you about all of this really fun color stuff in future videos. Stay tuned.